what walks the line. There's a rare few who think outside the box together for the crew. To break the equations, not bound to any rule. Exposing to the world the universe's own view. It takes the talent of the craftsman, it takes the mind of the fool, to make the vision realize energy and matter in a duel. To a break, to a duel. The old man, bills was running through his head. Cheryl probably got it hiding under his bed. Penny up to Annie, making power for days. Don't listen to a word that the straight dope says. Mike building batteries that power a ship. Victor comes and talking math, that's the water spiral dip. Sean chucking plasma bolts a mile long. Sheila on the video making tones from the prongs. Bernie breaking matter, they said it couldn't be done. And to all the people in the chat, I know you're having fun. So it's time to spend your Saturday with the doping old man Bills.
Hello everybody and welcome. Today is Walter Russell Day. Oh my God. Guys, I gotta explain this. Joe will be here in just a little bit. What we're doing with the rap is Walter Russell 101. So, I don't know if I'm going to put this out completely 100% today, but I'm going to show you some things in here that should just really draw your attention and should blow your mind. Okay, Walter Russell saw something when he was in a coma, I believe it was for a month, and he got to understand how the universe works. Let me tell you, he may not describe it the way you and I may describe it, but what he drew was 100% accurate, and we prove it in plasma and light. There's no getting around it anymore. What he did was the right thing 100,000%. But it's more than just showing you a picture. It's showing you an experiment that matches that picture. We are getting a lot, guys. I mean, a lot of understanding of this. Give me a second to adjust the mic right here. Just turn it down a little bit. Hopefully that helps right there. Okay. All right. Let's take a look. This is Walter Russell. How many of you out there know exactly what this is and why he put it in here? I mean, we can all read it. High pressure short waves, low pressure long waves. That seems pretty standard stuff, right? Let's change this up a little bit. Okay. Let's go to a different picture now. Come on, you could do it. Let's just change this. Let me take this one down. Sorry, give me a second. Now let's take a look at this. Do you realize we're doing the same thing here? Let's just go into it a little closer. Right here. You see it in the green on the upper right. Do you see the eye? The exact part Walter Russell was just showing you? You see, this thing is lensing. And when I say that, it's not like a lens per se in your eyeglasses. It's more like a magnifying glass lens is what it's doing. You see the green, you see the shape. The shape is 100% what he's doing. We can look closer on it. You see the different sizes inside of it. You start to get an understanding here. What was he looking at in there? You see, every time we see this, it's misunderstood because people keep saying camera effect or it's effect of, you know what I mean, some other garbage that kind of shoots out their mouth. What they're not understanding is what it's actually doing, because you don't need a camera to see this. You could see this in everyday life. You can see this in just about anything. It's, do you understand it? You see, people like to write off cheap camera tricks as stuff that they don't want to believe in. This right here starts to tell you the story of Walter Russell. He's trying to tell you it's zoning. It's focusing the energy. It's shooting a beam of energy, much like a laser. And it's going down. And what you'll actually see is the zoning. So as you see the green around here, it looks like a ghost image, right? It looks like the ghost is coming around the entire thing. But what you're not seeing on the other side is the other part of the circle. Why? Because it's in the UV spectrum. It's in a spectrum you can't see. So what happens is you mistake this for something that it's not. You think that this is the camera trying to adjust. The camera can't see what it's supposed to be seeing. It doesn't have the capability. So it's trying to make sense of what it's doing. There is a sphere right around this other object right here that looks as the eye. A spherical ring around it. Why? How do I know it's there? It's part of the energy exchange. It is exchanging energy between the part of light you can see and the ultraviolet part you cannot see. And what happens in between it, as the lines cross, they focus the energy. You see it coming out. You can see it start to split at the bottom left-hand corner. Notice the colors it goes to. You're getting green on one side of the spectrum. You're getting a purple. Then the purple, as it goes further down, turns almost to a black. That's the energy exchange starting to show itself. That is when you know what you're looking at here. This whole thing that Walter Russell was trying to tell you is how energy goes from light to building plasma to building structure in the entire universe. This is where it starts. The energy exchange is happening right now, and it shows up right here. Now, that's just one of his pictures. That's just one of the things he's trying to express. I get frustrated because people start arguing the wrong point. I don't give a shit if you think it's a camera effect. It is literally an energy exchange where the plasma is mirroring itself, and then the camera itself is trying to pick up what it's doing. Because it's mirroring, it's an energy exchange of itself. It's showing itself twisted upon each other. So as soon as it twists, it forms what looks like a mirror. And then you see the plasma here and the mirrored object here. And then away from it is the camera. It's trying to distinguish what's going on in the whole thing. You see, it's not just one effect, it's multiple effects. That's what they fail to understand. You could put it through any AI and they'll still fail to understand it. You could show it to just about any human, they'll fail to understand it because they don't understand what's going on. It doesn't just show up in plasma. It shows up in light itself. And it does it right through the lensing of our Earth. The Earth does the exact same thing. It still focuses light the same way. If you put up a pyramid structure and you put energy in it, light's going to focus to it. And what you're going to see in the sky is little balls of light. You'll probably call them UFOs, but they're not. It's part of the energy exchange. The ball of light up there is exactly that. It's the light from it focusing. It's in the energy exchange. What is up, Joe?
Hey, everybody. Happy Friday. I'm tardy.
We're talking about your favorite subject here, Joe, the energy exchange and Walter Russell.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. It's a good little topic for the day, I think. Nice.
Well, I was telling everybody, it's a bit misunderstood in the way that people see it. They're not seeing the other side because they can't see the UV side of it. Once you understand it's there and you can come up with a filter to see it, and let me just throw this out there, tonic water. Put light through tonic water. Go right out to the light outside, take a clear plastic 2-liter bottle, fill it full of tonic water. Put soda water in the other one. What you're going to find is the tonic water is absorbing the UV. So it basically glows in the dark when you bring it inside the room. So what does that allow you to do? It allows you to see the UV spectrum. That's the part you're missing. This is the other half of the exchange. So now that you know a process to find it, now we can look at every little part of this and start to distinguish it. What is it missing? And I'll tell you this, it has to do with magnetism. How did, oh man, how did we get to see magnetism? Okay. Basically, what he did was he took mouse juice and he took his blood and he put it in there and he put it between two lenses and it basically showed you the magnetic field. And once that was done, you should start to understand what this thing's trying to tell you. It's trying to tell you between each lens, you need a fluid that's able to see that medium of what you're doing. So if it's tonic water, that's the fluid medium along with the blood that you need to put in there in that lens in order to see this spectrum. When you get to the mouse juice, it's a different viscosity. It shows you things in a different spectrum because it's allowing light through in a different way. That right there, Ken Wheeler had the answer way before most of us even thought of what he was looking for that simple fact. This thing is slicing in layers, just like Walter Russell's telling you. It's showing you layer by layer what each one is, but now I'm telling you exactly how to find it. You find it by lensing the exact same way to see the medium he did. It's not about what you see, it's about what you don't see half the time. So you're revealing what you don't see, right, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a big proponent of stop telling me what you see and start looking for what's missing. Because, everything should be there all the time, but it's not. That says such a profound thing about, like you said, lensing, right? And just refraction and how that works in general. And Walter Russell himself, I mean, he was a major proponent of saying everything's light. I mean, listen, that's like one of those loaded statements, right? Because it's like, I mean, at least from my perspective, I mean, everything's probably more vibration, like, more into sound in its probably more native forms, I would guess. But how does it all manifest? Well, it all manifests in terms of light, at least dimensionally for us in our, 3D reality. So the light spectrum, and all it entails, including everything that falls off of it into X-rays, gamma, the whole nine yards. It's all light in the light spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Why are all these other frequency energies, right? Because all energy can be more or less presented as a frequency, and why does it end up falling on that light spectrum is because that's represented by the Planck scale once again at the lowest and the highest, and any energy that's ultimately going to manifest itself is going to have a light component to it. So this whole idea of what a photon is in general, for instance, what is a photon then? If you have a non-light component that creates light, right?
Well, okay, hold on.
Does that mean that the photon just exists within everything, all types of energy as a carrier? Like, what is it then? The fact is that it's not manifest until it's either reflected, or dissipated by something thermal, by a thermal event.
Okay, hold on, but let me jump in here because it's not that there's no energy there. It's that you can't see it. See,
Exactly.
this is the trick. If everything's in the light spectrum that's different than the one that we're seeing, and it's not visible to the human eye, it's not visible to the camera because we're not looking for it, it doesn't mean light isn't there. We got fooled by this. Remember the black light that we saw that showed up when we did the RAV? And all that you saw was, it actually looked like black and like soot. It was everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the exact answer because it goes through that. And what it does is it hits something, okay? Whether that be a magnetic field or something like that, probably most likely a magnetic field. And then it hits a higher state of energy is what we call it. But it's not a higher state of energy. It's the exchange of energy. It just transformed from that black light over to a light that's visible to our eyesight and our cameras that we train to see it that way. It's not that it doesn't exist or it isn't there. It's in a spectrum that we're not recognizing. That means that there's light throughout everything in the solar system and that we're not recognizing it correctly.
Mhm.
So we see it as just energy. And we like to say it's energy and then it goes to the highest form of energy and produces light. It's not, it's an exchange. It went through until it hit a barrier. When it hit that barrier, then it transformed itself into something else. It hit a heat spectrum right there that made it reveal itself. That's what it's doing. It's much different than there's no energy there at all. You see, space itself is full of energy and light. It's just in the wrong spectrum that we can't see it. It doesn't mean it's not there. It means that we can't see it. But that's the problem here. When we show the dots that look like atoms, there's energy all around it, but we can't see it. We can only perceive the dots. So our minds think it's one thing, but it's really energy exchange in process.
Well, I mean, okay, so think of a couple of examples here to show this in action, right? Well, you could take photos with X-rays, okay? It goes through the material, but it's still, it, its wavelength is that of an X-ray, but that wavelength falls into the light spectrum once the interaction occurs. Okay, so the interaction doesn't occur as it's passing through us, but as it passes through, what the photosensitive material is, it reacts with it. That's your light collapse in the first place. So it doesn't manifest as light until that plate interaction in that circumstance, and otherwise we just see it as X-ray radiation. Now, on the other hand, there's a million other examples of it. And it, like for instance, like we see a thermal event, right? You could feel the heat, but then when you start picking up on that thermal spectrum, you realize that it has a higher IR signature. And the whole reason that you're feeling the heat in the first place is because whatever the native energy was, or the native frequency of that was, is in a state of collapse into the IR spectrum. So then anytime it goes that way, you end up with a heat event. I mean, it goes on and on as far as, where it falls on the spectrum and sort of what you get out of it. But most types of energy that are emitted, have that broad spectrum potential, right? So it's depending on the frequency of what it's interacting with that is deterministic then of the colors that you see and the colors that you don't. We say that those other colors, they get reflected away, right? They reflected. Well, the fact is maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I think the more practical explanation of that is that the offset frequency of the light itself, in that case, and the material it's interacting with had an offset, and that particular frequency of that offset between them is the color that you end up seeing. That's what I see, because I mean, they say that all that other light gets reflected, and that full bandwidth is there. But if you were to sit there and take the measure off of that, it should be reflecting more light than it's actually absorbing. You see?
So let me say this: light is all a reflection. So I'll put this back up here so people can see it. This is the interaction here. So when we're mixing paints at home, we're seeing the reflection of the mix, right? But we don't think about it that way. We just think we're mixing paints. But here it is in the light spectrum. And the way you look at it, right now, if I were going to say this was a photon, what would I see? I'd see yellow. You know what I mean? That's where the things come together at. But what are the bands that are inside of it? You see, there's always a dark band in there. What is that? That right there is the spectrum you can't see. But what shows up in, you see the purple, the blacks, the dark purples that always start to show up because that's the beginning of how to see things. But this also is what Walter Russell calls fusion. You see, this is why it requires two. Just understand this. You have to cross this stuff in order to fuse it. That's what Russell was trying to tell you. That's what his work was about. He said male and female. He talked a little more philosophy into it, but it's not any different. The human body puts off all of these energies right now. You just can't see them. There's special glasses you can get to see all the energies around the human body, and you're going to find out real quick. Walter Russell was 100% right when he said it, and the way he tried to describe it was exactly that. They're putting off more estrogen, so they're chemically different than us. We're putting off more testosterone. We're chemically different than them. When you look at the light spectrum coming off of each one, it'll show up in that signature. So it shows up in this exact light frequency, just like this. And like Joe said, the frequencies come together and then they have to hit a higher point, right? So you get two yellows that come together, boom. You know what I mean? You get a very high yellow that comes out of it. And that's the most common color, by the way, that when you first start plasma that you see is an intense yellow. And then you could see a purple in there when it's not connected to each other. You know what I mean? It goes right through this spectrum right here, like Walter Russell said. He predicted how plasma builds out easily. I've seen every one of these light spectrums in plasma. And you get the blue, by the way, when you start combining the ultraviolet to get to the blue. That's how you do it, because it's in that same zone. It's now showing that color out. It goes from a purple to a blue.
Yep. Low grade sparks, like a flint spark, is in that yellow spectrum. And that's exactly what you would expect, because that's low grade plasma creation. It's finite, it's very limited in its energy in general. And at that frequency band, generally it would be, because sustaining that type of that particular frequency of plasma is difficult. That's a difficult proposition. Now, when you build it up and then you have it form and then you have it in a condensed and self-organized state, now at that point you can actually change the frequency, and what you may end up seeing is it return back to that native, that more centric yellow frequency band. Because of all of the offsets, and frequency variation that occurs within it. But the components that end up making that go back full circle back to that yellow are all the highest frequency bands, and those are the things that we often see, right? So we see the purples, and all into that spectrum, and we also see all the reds too. And those frequently build out. And it again, once it all comes together, you kind of start right back from the center again.
Yeah, let me tell you a little trick on a Tesla coil so everybody understands the relationship here. If I go outside and I put the wire down the center of my Tesla coil and it's cold outside, I mean cold, you put your finger on the wire, it's blue. You're going to get a blue light that comes off of it, okay? And as soon as you touch it, it'll do it. But say I connected the number 2 of the coil instead. And then I touch the wire on the top. And we're just talking about a wire with insulation already on it, okay? Just so you know, not a bare wire. Put your finger across it, it's purple. Why? Because the light spectrum changed, because I just changed the environmental condition. You see, space is cold. And the energy inside the earth is more heat and UV. So it's going to show me the opposite of the UV and give me the heat. It's going to give me the purple. But when I go out to the space, it's going to be cold. Therefore, it's going to show me the opposite of what's going on, so I get the blue. You see, it's the same understanding when you understand it backwards instead of forwards like you start thinking it is. It's opposite. You're seeing the opposite reaction as soon as you see it. It's a fascinating study.
It is. And when you see so if you play with high voltage at all, and you ever have like an insulated wire hooked up to that high voltage, what you'll notice is that anytime that you have like capacitance potential in the area that's greater than the rest of what surrounds it, you'll start out with a coronal discharge, right, from that particular piece of section of wire. And what you'll end up noticing, right, is that in that point where it's going to break out, it hugs that insulation very, very tight, and it's purple, and it's always purple because the frequency of those conditions are always high. Why? Because you have an increase in the capacitance potential and mass in that area, and then it's constricted on both sides. So there's a frequency fluctuation that occurs. There's a push out event that occurs there because now it's wanting to bridge toward that greater capacitance potential too, but it's staying tight because it's not breaking out. It's not in that high density, and there's still a lot of flow going through it. So the resistance isn't enough to force the pressure of it out, but it is enough to have it exit and also increase in frequency. So you have the purple discharge. It never cycles through these lower frequency bands to get there. It just innately is that because of the conditions. So I don't know. That's something I wanted to throw out there. But that coronal discharge is always in that purple spectrum.
Okay, I got another one for you here. This is Walter Russell as well. And he's showing you something very interesting here. And I don't think a lot of people caught it when he's showing you the vortex in the upper left. He's showing you how this expands out. Now, we've all seen the round circles, right? And we show it in the RAV. We got round circles that goes in all the way around. But how does it break to create the energy exchange? You see, this is what Walter Russell's trying to tell you in this image, that the energy's pulling it. So if we can imagine in the center of each one of these is a sphere, right? As soon as you take two spheres and put them across from each other, you start to create a figure eight pattern. But how does that energy break out into the figure eight? You see, we look at it as RF. So you'll see multiple lines of it build out. But this is exactly what it's telling you it's doing. You have multiple lines built out. Why are there black zones? And why are there zones that have color in that exact same? It's the energy exchange itself. Absolutely. This right here is the figure eight. He drew it differently than what we'd normally see it. But it's doing the exact same thing. We're exchanging energy. So let me just tell you, this is exactly how a magnet works. You say north and south are positive and negative, but it's the energy exchange.
Yeah,
why do we...
Sorry to cut you off, but this is important, and I'm going to forget to mention this.
Oh, go ahead.
This is the perfect explanation of the lens flare. In fact, it shows kind of lens in it. All right, and it's critical that you see and understand this because you look, suppose the circle on the left, right, is the RAV itself, okay? You actually have a definite location and a mutual meet point, okay, of the object on the right. But now what you have here, okay, because of the type of light and type of energy it is, it's not necessarily visible to your naked eye. But you have a lens function that's going to sit there and break that apart and expose it. And when you think about it as a lens flare, and you're like, well, see, every time you move the camera, every time you move the lens, it moves. Well, that's what lens flares do. So then it's a lens flare, right? Well, no, not in this case. And so why would it move? Because if you back all the way up to where they both have a convergence through that feed, okay, you notice that their interactive point of interaction is at that central north pole. Okay, so so that's at a fixed spot. So when you now move your position relative to their fixed spot, that moves relative to it because of that fixed spot. And that fixed spot is exactly where the back feed into the RAV is. Now, because it's also, in my opinion, again, more than 3D, okay, the geometry of it is also significantly different as well. So then its movement behaviors change as well, which is why you often see it expand and contract and change its form. So,
but that's why I tell you there's two effects going on. There's a camera effect that looks at it from one angle, but there's an effect in the RAV itself where it's an energy exchange as an 8. But what happens in the 8? It twists. So when it twists, it shows the mirror effect 180 degrees out from it. So you're going to see on the RAV, you'll see a little dot right here But on the other side, you're going to see in the exchange, it's opposite. Why? Because it twisted, okay, in order to do the energy exchange, and now you're seeing the opposite side of it. That's the whole point. But then the camera from your camera is looking at it at a different distance, so then it moves. There's more than one process going on in here. That's what the crazy part is. But you wouldn't know that until you knew that what the energy exchange was. And Walter Russell is explaining the energy exchange. He shows it bent like this. Why? Because it looks like a mirror. He's trying to show you a mirror in what it's doing. Why? Because that's the energy exchange. It's the dark portion of UV you're not seeing. There's the other portion. Let me clarify this point. This is how magnets work. You got to understand this. It's an energy exchange between them. So you say positive, negative, right? Say north, south. But what is it really going on here? We're energy exchanging. It reacts different in the environment based on what it's doing. So when you put them that way and you go, okay, now I have a magnet and I want to repel it, well, you can't have the same light source in the same light source. You get a repulsion. You have two dark sources, you have a repulsion, right? But that makes perfect sense when you understand the energy exchange and the way it's working, because it's flipping it, it's changing it when it's doing it. But that's exactly what a magnet does in the first place. It changes the polarity of it. It's not necessarily what you would think as positive and negative. It's an energy exchange. And that shows up in the Earth as well, where we have an energy exchange in the Earth. We have a north and a south pole. It's a simple energy exchange that's going on in spectrums of light that are creating it.
Right, but that's not the only energy exchange that Earth has. See, like, and the Earth is actually a great example because we know what the energy exchanges more or less are, and there's probably far more of them than we even give credit to. But we obviously know that we're in an energy relationship with the sun. Now, what they would want you to believe, okay, is that that is a one-way relationship. Okay, that basically we're an energy parasite of the sun, except for when you realize that the reason that we're in a fixed orbit at a certain distance, at that specific location, is because of the same type of relationship as a magnetic attraction and repulsion. They call that a mysterious event, but when something attracts and then all of a sudden repels, but it's not. It's magnetic field geometry.
Mm-hmm.
So it finds an equilibrium point between this attraction and repulsion, and that's where it settles. Now, once you have um, this relationship, okay, that implies that Earth has its own charge, and then the sun does too. And if we're locked in position based on that proportional relationship, that means that it is exchanging an asymmetric exchange, but an exchange nonetheless. And then you see the energy coming from the sun, and then that is manifest of our own magnetic fields, our magnetosphere. If not for the energy of the sun, that wouldn't be a thing like that. It would just be a very defined thing.
Oh.
Okay. Now, when you see exactly how that forms out and what that does, what you end up realizing is that you have your flare arcades that occur from the sun, which is an energy planetary exchange in itself. Okay. And then you also have the another thing called the flare as well, which is the high and low energy state vortices that lie right off of our magnetosphere. And those things tail end backtrack directly to the Earth, literally in a quantum feed, if you want to call it that, quantum tunneling, energy back and forth from Earth and so on as needed. So
Do you want to see it?
yeah, of course, show them.
That okay. We're all familiar with Ken Wheeler's work, right? This is the magnetic field. There's something hidden in here that he's not showing you. So let me go ahead and point it out to you. Right here on the right. Oh, wrong
Oh,
picture.
wrong one. Whoops.
Let's look on the right here. What is that?
Doesn't want to
Can you see it? You see, right there is a RAV.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the magnetic field itself. You can see the layers coming in. You can see the vortex created on both sides of it. I
There's
mean,
more than one.
no, they're all over it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's explaining what's going on here, guys. This is magnetics. You know what I mean? This is the reason it shows so slowly is because it's set in time with a decay rate. So it's showing you the event in slow motion. You know what I mean? We're looking at a time dilation field right here inside of a magnet that's showing a RAV that formed when it was in a vortex north and south. Inside of a magnetic field. I didn't make this picture. Ken Wheeler showed it to us. But it's always there. So let's zoom back out and let's see if we can't see it elsewhere. There's another one up there, another one, and they're at, it seems, equal distance as it goes around. All the way around in that field, on the right and left side, you can see the RAV form out in the vortex as soon as they pinch. There's no getting around it.
And that is exactly where it happens. Based on the geometry and that curvature angle, it happens right as the axis crosses that pinch threshold, which is why, if it's further out, you'll actually see it at what would seem to be a different location, just because it's at a different latitude. Right, but it still builds out in that same exact way, because that's where it's finding that equal lock, and when it was formed. I mean, obviously, this is not a moving magnetic field. This is a permanent magnetic field, right? So
yes.
is what you get. But
I just want to say thank you to Ulysses out there, man. Right on, brother. Thank you very much. Joe, I want you to look a little closer. There's an underlying reason why it's doing it. See if you could pick up the second line.
Underlying reason why it's doing it. See if I can pick up the second.
This is why they build the Rodin coil.
Oh, hold on. Yeah. So,
oh, you can see it now, can't you?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny because what you see is the inverse line, okay, that goes into the attractive and then repulsive state, the same as when it builds. So you have that on the one side, but then the clean conversion on the other. So they come out parallel together, but as they make that turn, they end up trying to cross and then deviating ever so slightly because they push out because they're parallel.
So I said this before, when you create ball lightning, right? One moving this way, one moving this way. They have a counter rotation to them just based on the way they're moving, right? That counter rotation is how you get the RAV. When you screw up that counter rotation and put the wrong side of the magnet in there, guess what happens? You start getting weird stuff, or the RAV doesn't form or whatever. But when you have the correct orientation, what happens? The RAV forms. So this is just like the Rodin coil. This is why Rodin would have done it if he would have seen what's going on here. It's because at every single one of those points, that's what you're trying to build.
Well, I mean, it's funny because when you had that picture up before, the first thing that came to mind when those the lines came up and then they crossed in the middle like that, right? Was that's showing two frequencies of the same frequency at their interactive plane. And if you look where they're going to cross, there's going to be constructive, when they're meeting at that angle, there's going to be both constructive and deconstructive interference that occurs. And what that's going to amount to is a standing wave, where you could actually predict and pinpoint the nodal points based on those relationships. And obviously, to change what that standing wave pattern would ultimately look like, all you really have to do is slightly modify one of the frequencies. If one of the frequencies gets changed ever so slightly, the whole entire pattern changes as to where the nodal points are ranged. So this really goes into the transmutation aspect of it huge, because that's wherever you're deconstructing, so to speak, right, becomes where it's like an inertial event, of attraction as that pulls in toward that nodal point because the rest of it's clearing out. So then everything that's in that zone, okay, it's not going to go away. It's going to consolidate into the nodes. The same as a cymatic plate, right? You have a lot of sand all over the place, right? Well, the sand that goes away in the deconstructive interference, it doesn't disappear off the off the surface of the plate. It doesn't disappear, right? It doesn't cancel. No, it just accumulates, and it accumulates at the nodal point. So, and by the way, that is the same thing in that case as a scalar collapse, just in case you didn't pick up on that. What ends up happening is you have all the energy vacating from the deconstructive interference, but because everything, it's about to fall into the opposite of a constructive, but made of the same parts, it just all takes that some of that energy and then moves it to that spot because you have a scalar collapse. Okay, and then a scalar event. And as we know, whatever's canceled, it's going to pop out that other side. And that's exactly what you observe.
There's the energy exchange, Joe.
There it is, man.
That's so crazy because the center point of the outside ring or the outside sphere is right in the dead center between the both of them.
It's really crazy how there's a lens flare on behind something because pretty sure lens flares don't do that. The same, but there.
No, it's amazing because in the energy exchange, you got to understand why it would be transmutation. It's the ionization. When you ionize the air, it's removing everything's ability to hold each other. So as soon as you do that, it can break apart. But that's what voltage and light is. It's ionization in the air. You get O3, you could smell it in the plants and everything if you're out in the middle of the wilderness. Look, it's the energy exchange going on in front of you. You just don't realize it because you can't see it. In this, we're able to see what we're looking for. You know what I mean? We're starting to see those things break down. You say, well, it's light, it's gas, they're all different mediums and plasma. How does it work? It's because light becomes plasma. Light is gas that turns into plasma. You know what I mean? There's a stage. There's certain stages that must go through in order to become one at the end, and the chemical process is switched in that stage. As soon as the light becomes a gaseous state, then it switches the configuration that becomes into a solid state. That's why energy exchange is important. If you interrupt that exchange and you start putting clay in there, or you put a different medium in there, what happens? It changes the transmutation property of it and changes the element coming out. One may create dust. The other one may not. It may create a more crystalline structure than that.
All right, let me connect some dots here, dude, because this
Go for it.
Will hurt some heads. All right, so what I said before is that, when the energy is going to take matter back to the fourth dimension as that part of the exchange, okay, the reason that they don't see it that way is because conservation says that and the energy can't be destroyed or created. But what I'd propose is that when that happens, and it happens only pretty much via plasma, okay, what we detect is it leaving the energy behind as a thermal signature. So we don't perceive the loss. You see, we just detect the thermal signature. Now, here's what I want you to wrap your head around real quick. When the RAV is forming up, okay, on an unconditioned surface, all right, the traditional way, because it's the easiest way to think about it, when it's building out and it's putting out the tendrils, and it's got that wispy purple plasma, okay, that doesn't have really a high thermal signature at all. That's got a very, very low thermal signature, okay, and it'll sit there in that wispy low thermal state, okay, until the RAV forms. And then when the RAV forms, well, we don't even know how hot it is because it's hotter than hell just inside the confines of it. And we could say that happens because of the energy density and the compression that it's under, right? We could accept that. But here's the thing. You could run it cold like that for minutes before a RAV forms on that unconditioned surface, and the temperatures stay about stable. Okay, but let's say you put the RAV now on a conditioned surface. It'll start the RAV right up, and it has that immediate hot effect, meaning that it didn't have time to build up all those saturation levels, okay, that the other configuration had at a low temperature. Okay, that means that you're able to get the super hot temperatures right off the bat with much less energy that had to come out of the system in order to achieve it. Why? Well, that's because it's already conditioned to return that matter, okay, back fourth dimensionally and then give you the heat signature right off the bat. Those conditions are already formed because the portal's already open through the conditioned surface of the cathodic energy. Okay. And that's the thing, is that the anode can break the cathode is what returns it. Okay. I know that's strange, but the cathode is the return. We see the anode and give all the credit to the anode because the anode is what's visibly putting the energy out, and you see the arc, and then you see the RAV, and where's always the RAV? The RAV is always kind of underneath the anode. You could take the cathode away, and then we say it's cathode dependent. It's anode dependent, not cathode dependent. That's just because we reset the relationship because the portal's already open. You don't need the cathode anymore, but it's the cathodic return. What's the difference between the anode and the cathode? What's the difference between positive and negative? Rotation. Well, okay, cool. That's how it explains then why one thing going one way and one thing going the other, or one thing pushing one way and one way pushing the other, when they're headed right at each other, they treat each other like the same and go away, right? And that's the whole point. So you have a counter rotation that occurs cathodically and a right-handed rule that happens anodically. So that means that the second side of the return, of the upper dimensional exchange happens cathodically. That's exactly what I'm getting at here. It's kind of crazy.
Okay. Well, let's show it. There's the RAV. There's the exchange. There's the mirroring. We see the dark points in it.
That's an awesome picture, by the way, man.
Yeah, well, it's basically giving you the answer that we're trying to tell you. It looks like a hologram. This is why it's dimensionally important. And I don't like the word dimension a whole lot. I keep thinking of the Matrix or some crazy stuff. Really what it is the UV spectrum's in its own dimension versus the spectrum that we see. And that's the difference in dimension. Is one we can't see, it's always there. The other one's there, you know what I mean? And we can't see the other one. But if you're looking at it from the outside view of it, and the person standing observing it, then both are right there in front of you, and they can see all of it.
It has to do with resistance, right? So this exchange rate that occurs, okay, and why it happens naturally under these time dilations is because there's a lot of resistance where there's a lot of matter, and much less resistance where there's high potential, matter to be easily stripped. What you'll find is that there's going to be, anyway, I don't want to go down that road because it's way too deep. The point is that this reduces the dimensional resistance, okay, that ultimately changes the exchange rate in this area. And this is why you're able to get the high exchange rate. But for my paper, at least, this directly ties into time and gravity.
Oh, it does.
So yeah, it directly ties into time and gravity. And for those interested, anyway, by the way, and I'll publish it soon. I'm actually working on the modifications right now. I just worked to complete some different modifications to additions to expand my paper, but not to make any more claims, right? Just to define a few items better. And as part of that, once I came up with the changes, I used multiple different AIs, okay, because I don't trust any just one, right? To run simulations on all of my equations and the parameters and the theory attached. Okay, and every simulation that I had it run with specific data sets has worked out flawlessly. So I'm very excited for that because that's all going to be part of the paper too, is all those data sets with all the application and show you, and then it brings in known observables as far as plasma and its relationship. And what it implies is that plasma is the um,
It's what bridges the gap dimensionally.
okay. So when and the reason that it only really happens via plasma is because in order to get something to the high level of excitation, okay, to cause the reverse dimensional exchange, you need to get it to really jack its frequency up all the way. And the only way to do that is to break down the matter into its smallest components, which it's doing. We know that. And then accelerate them. You know, and how do you accelerate something? Well, you do that through, through spin.
Mhm.
So these are all the components that the RAV is using, and then you realize quickly, and then you see the thermal signature, which is my other, right? The other thing, you see all that, and then you start to realize quickly, like, hey, this guy might be on to something, that village idiot.
What? Okay, I want to answer a chat thing real quick, Joe.
Yeah.
Hologram reflection looks like concave, convex. Let me explain this. If we're going through a lens and you shape it like this, right? And you keep going with this different layers, 3 different layers of the shape, it's going to focus, right? But what happens if it's mirroring itself? Then it's going to mirror itself in each layer back to it and focus, right? So what do we get? We get the spots where you see the round part, and this is in Walter Russell's as well, the round disc, okay, or the half spheres. They're showing you the exchange. Here's the half spheres on the inside. Here's the part where it goes in the half spheres on the outside and pushes the energy outward. It does both simultaneously. It's not choosing one or the other. It's showing you both. So when you see this thing shooting the energy one way, it's also reflecting back and causing that what you guys say is always a camera effect to happen. It's because of the layered structure that it's doing it in. Walter Russell showed this. I'll find the picture for you here.
Yeah. In fact, and science knows this already, but they refuse to take things that they know from one application oftentimes, and they keep it compartmentalized and bifurcated into its own little box. And as long as that stays over here, then it's cool. But all of these things have to do with lensing in general and how you gain access to be able to see certain things that aren't there because they're both in and out at the same time. Okay, is by virtue of lensing. So it literally, what is a lens flare is, it's the lens flare itself that actually needs to be redefined, because they just look at it from a photography standpoint or an optical standpoint, call it an artifact, when in fact it's using the same exact physics properties that they already agree with in order to expose what it is that it's showing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, exactly. Now, because of the photography connotation, right? Most of the time, it's due to an external light source. Okay, so that an external light source that's emitting a lot of light, okay, has a repeatable effect as to the specific lens and what geometries you end up observing out of a particular lens when it has a light emission that causes the flare. But what's different here is that the RAV does not have a major light emission. Okay. So what you're getting is actually a peer view of the window of the emission source itself, without all the additional refraction that occurs traditionally with a lens flare, photographic lens flare, because the all general light that we experience day to day emits.
Hmm.
And if you could name one other type of light that doesn't emit, please, in your daily life, you let me know. But the fact is, no. This is pretty much the only example I could come up with that you've firsthand experienced that doesn't put light out into its environment proportional to its emission brightness.
By the way, I just want to point this out. Okay. It is something I saw on Tesla Tech channel the other day, and he didn't really understand it. I tried to tell him it's Walter Russell. He took cylinders, and he would have one size, then another size, and another size, and another size, right? And he says it's like a focus gun to the ionosphere. Well, it is. But he didn't even understand what Russell was trying to tell him. It's because you have resonance zones and you have zoning that goes on in between each one of them with a sheath layer that's magnetized that he's pulsing is why it's doing it. It's no different than Tesla coils. I could take 5 Tesla coils and put them in the same configuration and get the same thing. You see, that's the understanding here. The center of the Tesla coil became very important for this one reason, because it's showing you this feature. It's just in a smaller form, but we can expand it out to multiple ones. See, if we want to go and get energy from the sun itself, it's simple. You put the rings the way they build them, exactly how this flare builds, or this lens effect, or whatever you want to decide to call it. It builds in the exact same way. So put in the structure the same way, but make sure it follows the golden ratio on the size of it. Why? Because resonance follows the golden ratio. You see, you think it's continuous like this. It's not. The golden ratio is set up to go all the way to a high point of resonance and then drop. Then to another high point of resonance and then drop. And then another high point of resonance and drop. What does that mean? It means that it goes in your sheath layers, exactly how the sheath layer builds. Low energy builds up into high energy states. Then you go into a magnetic state, okay? And then you get a sharp drop off. Then it goes back and does it again on the next layer. It is the exact structure that you're looking for. When you see it in crop circles, you can see it all day. If it's round and it goes, builds up, drops, builds up, drops, builds up, all in a circle, it's the exact same process taking place here over and over and over again. If you know how the sheath layer builds out, you know that it's doing this. You know that every time that you layer this and you resonate each one of them and you create that ability for it to see it, you're doing the exact same thing. And it goes through multiple materials, guys, different ways to do it. People do it to grow stuff in their plants. They start to create the vortex. Why? Because they're trying to get the exact same thing. If they understood both sides of it, it'd be easy.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that, man. Yeah, I mean, there was another thing that, and it's relevant to this. It's like I had mentioned something about like randomly thinking about antennas the other day. And it's something that, we talk about a whole lot of stuff here, but we don't talk about antennas very often. And then, I was thinking about like the radiant energy, like that goes off of the Tesla coil. And often when we talk about putting things into resonance and whatnot with that configuration, like talking in terms of like, okay, well, if you take a secondary coil and be in resonance with it, then you can induce that other coil then into resonance. Well, cool. But that's just acting like an antenna generally. And antennas can, receive and output too. The thing is that when you have an antenna and it's made at a certain length and size, right, to be able to pick up that frequency, the big difference is that it's not changing the current state that it's being inducted into. Which another secondary coil kind of would. Every one that you would put the system would have to keep up with it. And then,
Yeah.
because then you're not revectoring the radiant energy to another magnetic field, that builds out. Instead, you're inducing a current directly into the antenna. So, it becomes a lot more interesting as far as what it might mean to be able to put energy from here to there, even in just like a small shot from the system, to make sure that energy gets to one specific spot through induction.
Well,
you
he
know,
also it's also the size of it, Joe. Each size of it only allows for a certain wavelength between it.
Mm.
So each one is categorically taking the light and splitting it into the zones by frequency. And each side is resonant to the other. No matter how you cross that thing, it's a circle, it's a sphere. You know what I mean? It's resonant to each other. You're creating a Casimir effect between the two and letting it bounce. Okay, it's the relevance of it. It's creating a pump. It's an ionized energy pump that's working. Every time that you turn it off and on, it's a pump.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I call it Tesla coil a pump, because when you put it in that configuration, it makes a perfect pump.
Absolutely does. And
Oh, I'm going to
it's
show
also
this.
the reason that when I shared my little anti-gravitic Graviflyer 2.0, that was the first thing that came to mind, because it's going to be the one thing that's capable of both putting up radiant energy as well as, a DC potential, like static potential, and then also natively induce itself into AC after saturation and resistance is added, through a loop. So it's like, it's literally the perfect,
Well,
intermedium.
the high voltage going back and forth is driving the pump.
Exactly, right. And then it's that back and forth that creates the pulse, that creates that would ultimately, when you bring it into the correct configuration, would make an AC slosh because
Yeah.
because it's moving back and forth, it's deviating.
So just so we're aware, because you're spinning those discs, the center point of the big plate in the center is where it all accumulates at. Anytime you put high voltage on it, it'll rip right down to the center. Okay, every time. So it's creating that center part right there, which is a pressurized zone right there. That would be the little dots that you see in the RAV. That would be the center of the RAV right there. So it's creating the vortex, it's spinning the vortex, and then it's pumping the vortex.
Yep.
Okay? It's, by the way, the reason they put that center plate in there is it amplifies the amount of energy between the two plates of the capacitors. It basically doubles to 10 times the amount of energy that can be stored in that area based on that simple putting that in there versus just putting two spinning discs. That's why it's in there. So just so we know. Also, I wanted to show this right here. Magneto Frico wanted me to show his thing. He's creating the same zoning, Joe.
Yeah.
He's got the light. He's got it built up. But this is the way energy works. As it goes out, it changes the color in it. It's the exact same thing we're talking about. Maybe a completely different configuration, but it's acting appropriately.
Right. I mean, that's not pure diffusion. It's still banding out. So it is pretty neat. It's cool to see that.
Yeah. Dude, we got a lot more, dude. Walter Russell was on it, Joe. I'm telling you.
Yo, I mean, he had a lot of, even just how he arranged the periodic table, that at some point, I pray and hope that it's in the very near future, that table is going to become very, very relevant to what we're doing quickly, because we're going to, realistically, the frequency tuning of the beats that you want to put out during transmutation is going to be directly pulled off of his charts.
So I want to show this one, Joe, if it'll show, because you got to see it. This is one of the images that everybody shows when they show Walter Russell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll explain it this way. I'll let Joe take it over, okay? Anytime that I take a Tesla coil as a driving coil and I put a secondary to it a distance away, this configuration shows up in that second coil away from it. What is the configuration? The vortex coming in top and the bottom, making it bipolar to the exact center. It then has a null zone that builds out on both sides. You put the light to it, it doesn't feel like it exists. It doesn't turn on, but it'll turn on the upper and lower portions of it. When you put it out further and you see the discharge area, the light turns on again, all around the entire thing. It shows up in a cylinder of a number 2 coil by itself with no plug-ins 2 feet away at 3 volts. 3 volts. Because I no longer am playing around with just my Tesla coil. I'm playing around with the air around it. I've created the environmental conditions of the pump. Joe, by all means.
All right. Well, when I mentioned the light effects, right, and I had mentioned that I called it over compression, okay, but the fact is that when you have high compression, okay, you have a transaxial discharge of light, right, and the reason that you would end up seeing it as a discharge of light in that case would be because of the thermal compression that the RAV itself has in general. So all the thermal is just getting recycled in, and all you're getting left with is your coherent transaxial beam. But now, if you look at this convergence and you realize that you have an anodic charge bias one side and a cathodic charge bias the other, okay, and then you have this discharge plane going directly through the center, which, by the way, is not three-dimensional in that regard, because that would be interactive with all the layers, and you know that it's not sloshing and acting as an intralayer exchange. So you know that it's actually beaming out from that center in a non-manifest form, no observer, okay, and hasn't reached any specific frequency yet. But when you cross all these bands in the dead center, what you realize is that that's where your pendulum is not swinging. So that means that there's zero resistance when you see that transaxial discharge. Because all that represents is, once again, yet another axis, another dimensional axis. So if you consider the sphere to be 3D, and then the fact that it has this internal tunneling geometry through the charges that do not interfere with the sphere itself, right, as a whole, well, that's 4D. But now when you add a second cross discharge that doesn't interfere with either the sphere or the toroidal element of the sphere, you realize quickly that you have now entered into another axis of dimensionality, being a fifth dimensional axis. So it's actually bringing up another dimension altogether. And then what you end up having in the middle is use your common sense. If it's cold and it's got no resistance and we're talking about dimensions, I mean, call it what you will, but it's basically a portal at that point. Plus, you know that it's at the point of cross when the pendulum is up and not swung down yet, which is exactly what that point is in all directions, which means that we already know that it fell off the Planck scale and beyond. So.
Ken Wheeler said this was wrong, and he's looking at it from the point of a magnet. And if you look at his magnet, that might be true, but this is an electromagnet. You see, we're not set in one time in a specific thing. It's not slowed down. We're not in a time dilation. We're in an electromagnet. In electromagnets, when they're done like this, they're different. They come out like this. Their vortexes exist like this. You see, you have to be able to build these little spherical balls because without them, there's no ions. You see, this is like an ion energy that we're looking at. I'll show you another picture of exactly, what this is because we see it every day in the lab when we deal with it. I don't think a lot of people see it the same way we do. So there it is. Now let's look at this and understand why it's here. Those are balls of ions, balls of energy. That's what they are. They're compressed to the center. In between them, the energy flows. You can even start to see the energy in there. You see that extra ring it's building on the inside. Look, this is the reason Walter Russell puts this stuff out this way. The energy itself is so dense on the inside of this. It's almost incalculable what it is. I know that you have to go into, this number to the so many degrees or whatever they say it is, you know what I mean, to get to it. But this is what it is. This is how it works. It's so compressed that it forms those little balls inside there. The diagram we just showed you is exactly what's going on in every one of these little balls that are sitting in there because it's hitting from every angle, the top, the bottom, the left and right to each other. It's completely compressed together. That's why it's vortexing in that manner. But then you see the rings built out from it and you start to really understand what he's saying here. When you put these things in magnetism, we see it as a moment in time. When you put them in electromagnetism, it starts to make sense why they're reacting the same way. There's other people out there, man, that have shown this in magnets. You take a 360-degree magnet with the same pole all the way around it, it'll build out just like this. They won't go any closer. They won't go any further apart. As you add more, they'll just build structure to it. But what you're looking at is that they build geometry as soon as you do it. You see, there's more balls here than what you think there is. And when you look at the center, you can start to see it. You see the center, it looks like there's two balls, but it looks like a ghost shadow of the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's because both sides, the other side's building it out, but it's not just out of, the, say, into the 4D or fourth dimension. It's actually building it physically out. And there's one in front of it as well because it has to finish the geometry structure inside of a sphere, not inside of a circle, inside of a sphere. So you have to add more to it in order to do it. That's why they look kind of ghostly there, because there's more in there than what you think there is.
Absolutely.
So it's compressing it, you know what I mean, in such a way that it's forcing it to respond. Let me also say this. You're seeing one side of it, you're not seeing the other. If I was going to show you the other side of it, it would look like the inner core of an atom. You basically put a ring around every one of these and put them together. It looks like the inside core of an atom. They smushed all the balls together in the center. Same exact structure that's building. Nature has a way of repeating itself. It's the exact same thing. What are you not seeing about it? It's they're in that dark energy. They're in that UV zone. You can't see the rings around them, but they're there.
Yeah, this is dark plasma, to be very clear. This is dark plasma.
It's what you're not seeing is the problem. They say it's hollow. It's not. It's full of energy. It's just in a different state of energy than what you can see.
Well, the center of it is in a repellent stage. And then when it hits that point that it's settling at is when it hits the attractive stage. And this is just where where it's neutralized and stable in between that repulsion and attraction. Ashton Forbes has showed it before, and I don't know where he got that video from, but it's pretty cool, and it's something that anybody could make. But if you take a bunch of magnets and you put it around the perimeter of a circle, like in a 3D printed thing, right? And then you put the opposite polarity on the other side, in the center rather, right? And that larger polarity is a bigger magnet, aka more powerful. Well, what you end up doing is you'll sit there and attract another magnet, no matter its polarity. Okay, this is important. No matter its polarity. Okay,
Hmm.
it will attract that magnet to it, but then push it away. Because one of two things is going to happen. Either your outer polarity is going to attract it, and then the one inside is going to repel it at that same point, or the opposite's going to happen. The inner one's going to attract it because it's more powerful, it's got more reach, right? And then the outer ones are going to repel it. And there's a slight deviation on the polarity depending on the offset of what the bias is of the polarity. So there's a polarity bias, but they're both present, and because they're nested, this occurs. Well, guess what? Magnetic fields work the same way. Like just because you see a north and a south pole, top and bottom, when you look at it in a diagram, doesn't mean that when you get down into the central points, what happens at that switch point? You think it happens immediately, or is it diffuse? Of course, it's diffuse, right? So there comes
Yeah.
a certain point where you're traveling the trajectory through the center geometries where you're starting into your switch points, and then you end up spots of neutrality. It ends up with the whole entire zone. Where no matter which polarity it is, there's going to be an attraction repulsion event just by entering into the inner field.
Give me 1 second, Joe. I'm pulling it up right now. Just so everybody's clear on what Ashton showed.
Yeah. And shout out
Yeah.
to Delta KB. I remember you used to watch the show all the time. I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. And he says it leads right into subtle energy bodies, chakras, and clairvoyance, etc. Yep, I agree. We'll get to that. Walter Russell thought so too.
So, for those of you who haven't seen this, this is basically the guy put magnets in the thing up here and it makes a vortex top and bottom. And then he's putting magnetic balls in the center of it and he's showing how that they work. Let me go to the next one here. You can see that they're perfectly spaced apart, just like the picture I just showed you, right? It's doing the exact same thing. Inside the center of the vortex, this is how they work. This is your 0 point, guys, right here. You want to find it, here it is. This is where all the energy converges, the highest amount of energy possible is always right here in the center. But you can see these are magnetic balls and they just move to the center, exactly like I showed you in the plasma. That's what's going on here. We're creating conditions like this.
Now, the weird thing comes with this, okay? If you were to reverse the process of the RAV and turn the inside out, okay, then all you have is a cord. I want to be very clear about that. If you pick up what I'm putting down, and that's another thing that's directly related to Ashton, okay, because what do you see? You see the plasma balls, right? And then when they converge, they turn into the inside out version of them. So their contraction, once they contract and they consolidate, then you go inverse, and then the inside is out. And what's inside is the expanse of the portal, which is the sum of the three. You see, you'll notice that if you were to probably spread out the surface area of those three orbs, and combine them, what you get is the sum total of the of the expansion event. And I would almost make a bet of that, that's the case.
Guys, hold on, I just want to say real quick, David Lapointe, I believe is his name. You see it right there on the bottom. I left it in there so you guys can look him up, and you'll see this exact video. It's absolutely beautiful and fascinating to look at. But he shows you that. He shows you in the energy on how it builds out around this stuff, and in this way, he's showing you the magnetism, but he's showing you the exact same thing that we're telling you now that's going on inside the RAV.
Yeah,
It's exactly the perfect example of both. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
What was that the molecular bond of? Because I know that structure. What is it? Carbon. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, just a second. I'm going to pull back up what I was looking at because we want to get back to Walter Russell and what he's showing you. And Joe has a fascinating picture of an energy change. I'm going to put up Walter Russell's real quick, though, and then I'm going to pull up yours to show it. So let me find it real quick. There you go. Go ahead and speak on that, Joe, real quick, and then I will pull up the one you have.
Yeah, I mean this is it. I mean this is thunderstorm generator, and all they talk about is everything we talk about. It's what I mentioned when I was like, well, if we follow the right hand rule, and the right hand rule means that we're bringing in dimensional energy, right? Well, that must mean that a left hand rule would, make sure it goes back where it comes from, huh? And that's pretty much what this is showing there, and you can see it right there. There's an inertial plane, okay, that occurs, okay, and that would affect the energetic flow pattern of the locality, right where the convergence is. And you'll notice that there's a bias to it too. So, yeah, that's what you see there.
Sorry, it's taking a minute to find this thing.
Yeah, no problem. You're probably going to have to zoom in on that other one, I think. The one relevant to this.
Give me a second. It's got to be here. So funny. We go back and forth on this stuff, and we know exactly what it is.
Well, the crazy thing is that, I mean, so everybody's aware that process that I came up with that I call VBM, okay, which is vector bias mapping, okay. Literally, it's a technique that I created myself, and it is giving wildly accurate depictions. Wildly accurate depictions, and you're about to see it.
Oh, come on, it's right here.
Yeah, listen. We all share a lot of stuff, so gotta stay on top of it.
Oh man, it's like, you know what, Joe? Can you send it to me?
Yeah, sure. Give me like 1 minute, okay? I'm gonna have to rejoin.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that, guys. I'm gonna show you something real quick. If it comes up here for me. Oh, come on. There it is. I think I showed this a couple days ago. This is Mike over at Faraday Research Channel. He built a pyramid, and he was putting out energy from that pyramid. He had it under his high voltage lines going through his area, and then he decided to put his pulse motor in the center of it. You're seeing the big circle there, right? It's just there to show you the zoning area. There's that little dot that's in it. And what that little dot is focused light. Remember we were telling you earlier how the focus light works and how it comes into a spherical form and it's up in the air? Well, this right here shows you exactly that Mike captured it perfectly in the air, and he has a focused beam of light that's coming through. And what you see inside this thing, and I have a video of it, it's absolutely fascinating. There's little dots inside of it. It's the same exact thing. The dots are there. You'll see them like this, right? But what are they doing? They're focusing the energy to a point. Inside the dots is that sphere. And I have a video of it. It goes back and forth and shows you it's there. And it's shoving energy around a loop, right? So we always think of energy on the outside of a wire. Well, what do you think a laser's doing? As you do this, it's taking the magnetodielectric and putting it around it. It looks like DNA. And it's going like this. That's exactly what this thing is. when he shows it up in the air. It's not a UFO. It's a light fact. All right, Joe. Give me a second. I'm going to pull it up real quick. I was showing Mike's.
And I sent you a couple of other photos too.
I'm showing Mike's thing right now on what he's got going on. Remember when he showed us the light effect?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the one I want right there. Okay, let me pull this one
I sent you the
down.
one circled too, so it's there, and then whatever.
There we go. Take a look at this.
So you got your figure 8, and by the way, it was able to pick up the counter flow underneath of itself. So the vector mapping picked up the fact that there was this going on, and it literally was able to differentiate, from the two different flows. So you could see the inflow, you could see the outflow. Now look at where you have your major outflow from the RAV, right at the transaxial plane. I mean, there's a side bias here, but I mean, still, that was complete blackness in the original photo that I used. Like, it was able to pick up on that dynamic there, but you could see it coming in from both sides, and then it connects this directly to the lens effect. Okay, hold on. It was able to pick up field vectoring in direct relationship with what's supposed to be a frigging artifact. That's strange.
Yeah, we know it's not an artifact, Joe. This is this is energy exchange.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so interesting how it captures it perfectly. How you figured out, you know what I mean? How to map it and show it. It's extraordinary.
It's really, really cool. I like it.
Yeah. Walter Russell was all over it, dude. And so he shows you this diagram, right? And you don't know what to make of it, right? Because I looked at him for years and had no clue what the hell's going on. And then I came back to it once we started doing the RAV, and I started to see all the anomalies going on. And I said, maybe there's more here. So before Sean even put the video out, I would tell him what it was. So funny. And then he would then send me a video of exactly what I just told him, right? And he probably did that video weeks ago. He's just thinking, you know what? How does this old guy keep figuring out what I'm doing? It's because I figured out what Walter Russell was trying to show me. And I figured out how exactly it predicts out to be the next thing based on all the experience that I've had. And Joe's seen this on my channel. I've been doing high voltage for a very long time. I've been doing resonance for a long time. I've been working with energy forever. And it didn't become apparent of what we're doing until we start to see this thing map out.
Yeah. Now, if you also notice something interesting about this VBM, is that you notice that there is a little bit of an exchange feed between the flare and the RAV itself. Okay, but it's mostly a one-way feed. Okay, and if you notice, it's getting its energy from somewhere else. Okay, according to the photo at least. All right, now what did we say before? Where does the other side emerge from? Is the cathode. Okay, where is it getting its energy from according to this? The same place that the RAV is laying atop is the cathode. Okay, that's the cathodic bias. So you could notice that the energy flow primarily for the RAV is from the top down. Okay, and then it's getting a bottom feed from the cathode. If you look closely, you could see it. It was able to pick up slightly that it was getting a bottom cathode feed. But this one is being fed from the bottom cathode and then is feeding directly into the RAV itself.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a direct relationship here that's occurring, and it's able to pick up on it on the mapping because the photo itself, you got to remember, right? Light is energy, right? And energy can be manipulated by these field dynamics, so it even a small deviation, it is going to pick up on a two-dimensional sensor as as a fraction of a degree, right, of a difference. And when you exploit these, you're able to actually show the deviation, even if there's an image atop it. Now, I will say that the more background there is, okay, in these things, the more noise that ends up occurring, right? So
Mhm.
that happens to be a thing. So because it'll try to map around an object too.
Okay,
But,
so Joe, real quick,
Mhm.
the little light balls down there, that's not the cathode.
Not the little
It-
light bulbs.
no, no, no. It's happening as soon as it starts to direct energy.
Mhm.
And I had shared this with you guys before, so let me pull that up, okay? Because it's going to become important. Um,
Yeah, while you're pulling that up, let me just say, probably related to what you're saying right now, right? Is you could start up a RAV and not have the lens flare, okay? But then
mhm.
randomly the lens flare will appear when there's no um, uh, meaningful or visible brightness increase or change to the RAV itself. So
Because
there's
it has to be resonant in organization to form.
so there's a not visible mechanism, okay, that's actually occurring to make this then happen. And yeah. Also, there's this dynamic that exists too, because you're looking at it and it's through a lens. It's actually, if it's receiving that light and it's a focal point, that focal point's actually projecting light back out, even if it's a minuscule amount, back into where it's coming from at the focal point, right? So you're actually putting resonant energy back into it too, just by looking at it, either with your eyes or with a lens. Like, you need to get your head around the sophistication of it. As far as it's insane. Which,
So I'm
yeah.
going to show you a series of pictures of this. Here's what I want you guys to see. And there's several things going on here, but I just want you to focus on one. You see the top, it looks like the eyeball. You see down there, you see the part of the eyeball that's popping out, okay? And you look down and you see that circle right there. And there's a dot in the center of the circle. Now, I'm going to show you a series of pictures that are going to show those little dots, and it's probably not the best picture, but you'll see them. When this video plays in slow motion, you see it all. Okay? So we see the little dots. Then we go to this. So we know the eye is formed. We know that we got a focal point. That focal point, now it's right there. You can start to see them. You start to see the separation in there. It looks like a burst of energy right there, but it's the dots. I'll get you a better picture here in a minute because these won't zoom in. But there it is again.
Yep. You can see those micro dots in there too.
It's all the same series picture, guys. All I'm doing is capturing it. And you're going to see it build out, and then you'll see it do this, which looks like an eye of an iris.
Yeah. Lens
So,
flares don't do that, by the way. You can't have multiple spots of off off center refraction. And if you ever notice when a real lens flare breaks out, it's always just one flare straight line. You know,
mhm.
you can't then have another lens flare on the other side going another direction. It's not how that works. It's just not.
So actually, I'll pull this up. Let me see if I can't find it on my channel. Um, oh, you know what? I can pull it up another way. Probably easier.
do that. While you're doing that, so for those of you who haven't seen the older TV series Manifest recently, okay, I've seen the series like 3 times, but you may want to pick up on that because some people know the things we know,
Yeah.
and then they make TV series and stuff. I'm just saying.
So this is the video, Joe, and
Yeah.
you can see it. It's lensing down. It's going down and it shows that light, and it's clearly focused. There's no camera in this world that can make that happen. It's got to be in what it's doing. And then you could see it in the little purple part that builds out. The little dots start to appear right there. And it goes back to it. So it's telling you what it's doing. It doesn't lie to you at all. It's telling you full blown what it's doing.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting that.
Hold on. You could actually see it reflecting off the bottom surface on top of that.
I know.
Like, there's certain things that are undeniable, and like there's a certain part where, yeah, right there, you could literally see it reflecting off the bottom surface. The pisser. I mean, this is also a super cool reaction because look at those satellites that are building out off the, way off the clay.
But that's Sean's bubble experiment. Remember, you got the bubble and all the energy that came from it and the little bubbles?
Well, I remember.
It's the same exact thing going on, Joe.
No, I agree.
We're showing how focused light works, but focused light, you can see what I'm saying. All those little bowls you saw in Walter Russell, now look at the purple right there, or the pink, I should say. Look at the little dot. If you look into that, let me see if I can't screenshot this real quick because you'll be able to see it maybe. It's building in layers, exactly as Walter Russell said it would. He told you that they were showing in little bowls, one right after another. Oh, it's right there.
Yep.
So let me pull this down and I'll pull that up. Because, and I can't wait to get to the next one too, because we have an energy exchange one that's awesome. But let me see if I can't find the right photo for this one. I pulled them earlier. Come on, Nathan. That's what happens when you get old. You forget where you put things.
I want to see this. I want to see this experiment happen with aluminum oxide. Like on the clay surface. Like, I think that would be interesting.
Found it. Okay. Okay. This one's not giving it to me. I hate when it does that. There's the bowls.
Yep.
Right in front of you. There's the bowls he was talking about. And
Yeah,
the little dot that he
It's got 3
predicted.
nodes, man. It's got 3 nodal points in there.
Yeah.
And
That's
a
the bowls.
triangle formation, huh?
But this is what I'm saying. When you go to Walter Russell and you start to realize what he was talking about and you see it built out in front of you, it's hard to deny it. He's showing the spheres, in half, and here it is right here in front of us. He didn't mean to make them whole. He was telling you they were in half, and he was telling you there's a focal point to them. And sure enough, it's sitting right in front of us, and we saw the other part built out as the focal point built it out. He was 100% correct. What he saw, however he saw it, was right. And how people translate it seems to be wrong, apparently, because this is showing 100% his work. They're not going around it.
I mean, I've seen this video before, I feel like, but I don't think I've ever manipulated these photos at all to see what they are actually doing. But like, I keep on looking at the center of that, and I mean, I see 3 bright points, right? But then I keep on also seeing a freaking it's starting to like come in on one side, and it's starting to look like a spiral. So I mean, I don't know which is the dominant thing because either they're 3 equally spaced dots or there's a spiral.
It's focusing. So hold on, let me pull up another one so we can take a look at it. It's like you ever see a laser with a bunch of little round heads on it,
Mhm.
and then it focuses into one beam? See, there's that little piece right there. That's the exact process that's going on here, Joe. We're focusing light into a beam. This
Yeah.
experiment, by the way, of the RAV can be created in a laser as well. I don't know if people really realize that or understand that,
Well,
but it can.
we're gonna show something in a minute that'll show you something like it. Something like it, not the same.
So there's those little dots again, guys, a little better picture of it.
Mhm.
And you can even see the angle of focus starting to come into them. They're starting to pull together to focus the beam of light.
Yeah, that full geometry didn't get pulled in dimensionally yet entirely. Like it's only a portion of the whole of whatever you're seeing.
We're going to have to check out her channel here real quick. I have a theory close to this about spin. It's on my channel called The Cosmic Spin. I still haven't read his material. I could tell you that he's probably predicted it, but I think Cosmic Spin, I think it's right in focus with what we're talking about here.
Yeah, it definitely is because I mean Walter Russell also took it into the consciousness standpoint of it too. He was a big believer in like the singularity and unified consciousness theories and basically like Akashic records and how we're basically just a fractal remnant of the overall light of God, so which is pretty similar to my beliefs. I think that I use different words, but I wasn't really super familiar with Walter Russell's work, to be honest, before you mentioned we were going to do a show on him today. And then I crash coursed myself and I was like, oh, this is easy. I already know and believe all this and just did never get it from him, but like okay, cool. Like I guess you got it from the same place,
That's hilarious, Joe.
No. I was like, oh, I just get to talk about the same shit I always do. Except now I get to say, oh, but he believed that too.
Oh my God, dude.
One thing that I found interesting is with my dimensional time situation, blah blah blah, that I like to talk about these days. Okay, realistically, that already kind of exists in physics. I realized only recently, and it's only due to the overall ignorance of common physics, right? But evidently, pretty much what I already described, they already defined, and that is the Higgs field. They just it's a it permeates all of space. It makes there's an exchange in between it and everything like that. They just define it entirely different, and because these fucking numbskulls think everything is a goddamn particle that makes up like all these points and shit, they're failing to see the bigger picture. Because it's not these particles that's dimensionally irrelevant. It's geometric. It's geometric and flow.
Yeah.
How much, and it's all deterministic relative to this dimension based on resistance.
Well, because it's all geometry, yeah. This isn't algebra, this is geometry.
Yeah, it's all geometry, and it's that's how the energy exchanges work. It's in volume. Okay, it works off of volume, and the volume is deterministic on the resistance of how much of it can press in. And the reason for that is because of the pressure, right? So because it permeates everything, it exists in us and surrounding us, meaning we're
Mm-hmm.
in the pool, which means that because we're denser than it, we put there's pressure that exists between us and it, and it's that pressure that is the resistance, right? Yeah, now we're getting it.
Yeah.
That's the Higgs field, man. Evidently, just it's
That
not.
I want to show
The
you guys.
boson thing is not, what it is. They just saw something spinning in a direction. They're like, oh, there it is.
Usually more to the story, isn't there? And if you go around and you don't research it properly, you're going to end up in trouble. So like this is the energy exchange. I want to. Everybody who's watched my channel for a while has seen this, and Joe and I talked about it extensively. On the upper right-hand corner, you're going to, or not corner, on the upper right-hand side, opposite of the pink side, where you see the pink ball building out, you're going to see the black dot, and it's the energy exchange working, and you can see the light focusing into it and then coming out in a geometrical structure.
Yeah, definitely can.
But Walter Russell told us the same thing.
Yeah, you got your sun, you got your moon, and then you got your frigging other dimensional exit point.
Mm-hmm. It's the energy exchange. It's the fundamental understanding of sheath zones and why they're built that way. Why there's magnetic on the outside. By the way, I gotta say this, and it's Dr. Yu, right, was talking about magnetics, and Joe and I had a conversation about this. Is it magnetics? Is it an electromagnet? And we saw it in Ken Wheeler's work. It can show up in a magnet. It's there in a magnet. But it's only based on the decay rate you're going to be able to see it in the way you need to see it. But that was also a huge insight into something. So just understand this. When things are still, they have a low decay rate. So that means that the center must not be moving a lot, which means that the time dilation in there is very slow, just like a magnet. So the doctor's right, okay? But it's also an electromagnet. Because Joe doesn't see the difference between the two, he just said, So I get, okay, let me research this some more. The effects are shown faster on the outside like an electromagnet, but on the inside they're shown more like a magnet on the inside. Therefore, it slows down time on the inside where it speeds up time on the outside. We're absolutely in a time dilation field and what's going on, and that's the reason why. And Joe's little, I figured it out.
Yeah. Oh, the whole reason that a permanent magnet is magnetic is because the energy is trapped in it in the same geometries that electromagnetism works in. So it doesn't know the difference. It literally is simulated. You see, because it doesn't have flow to it, but its energy pattern is set up the same way with the same upper dimensional geometries. Okay, and that allows for it to then act like electromagnetism. You see, it's an analogy. It's literally a holographic, projection of this energy that just simulates the magnetic force. It's very strange, and if you notice, that's why materials are not all magnetic. Okay, and why not all materials can become magnets. In fact, very few can. It's because very few are either situated in the way to actually fully respond to that magnetic field in an attractive or repulsive way that's not superficial, right? But more importantly, what makes something a permanent magnet, not everything's capable of holding the energy in it once it reaches a certain charge point, to be able to then simulate that upper dimensional geometry. That's why steel and stuff like that, the way that it's situated between the iron and carbon, and mostly that's also why you'll notice that most of the time magnetic steels are high carbon steels. Okay, it's carbon, right? And it if you put a high voltage on it, it'll take on magnetism, and keep it for at least a while. So,
It's funny because I looked at Walter Russell's periodic table. Did you realize that between every one of those zones, he has a little ball? I'll pull it up for you, Joe.
pull it up.
It's incredible because I don't think people realize it's there. They look at everything else and they get all into the everything else of it. Where was it? Was it this one? It's on his other one, the one that you
Well,
sent me.
that's his periodic table, which is
Yeah, but it's
also very relevant. So
not the same one. Hold on. Let me find it.
I mean, this is basically what they ripped the plasmoid unification model off of, which is why they probably don't talk about it as much anymore because it's all based on Russell Walters stuff. Before this, before researching for this episode, this is pretty much what I knew of Walter Russell was just this one thing. So
Okay, here we go. This is one. Just understand what's going on here. We're looking at this, and in between each state is a basically there's a RAV there because it's transmutative, and you could say, oh, it's just a stupid part of the diagram you drew in there. But when you know how this energy works and you understand what's going on here, he's telling you there's positive and negative going on in here.
Mhm.
The one side is positive spin, the other side's negative spin. It's the difference between north and south. And it's the reason you get transmutation. One rips things apart, one puts things together. That's how it works. But he's showing you that it has to go through some kind of fundamental change in order to do it. That's the reason it's there. Walter Russell wasn't wrong about almost anything. And if I'm not mistaken, he predicted at least 9 elements that were not on the periodic table before he did this. And then as soon as he did it, they found the 9 elements and they found it exactly where he said they were because it looks like missing zones in between each one of them. Walter Russell had this right.
yeah, I mean, one thing that's hold on, 'cause I'm actually pulling up the chart so I can see it better on my computer. But give me one sec on this. See, so you said like at that point where it crosses from going up to going down, is the transmuted points? Is that where you were going with this?
So it's one full cycle. It's half positive, half negative in each little side, right?
Yeah.
So each little C shape is half positive, half negative.
Mhm.
And then you get into the center where then you take those and you pull them apart. And as soon as you pull them apart, you can add more material to them.
Yeah, I mean, I
And then
agree.
you bring it back together.
I mean, I agree with you entirely, right? Because you have your up bias and your down bias.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's exactly it. And I mean, that's your non-equilibrium point, you know, and then
Yes.
and then you have your other non-equilibrium point too, which is the inert elements. You know, they're all inert. So you know, it's funny how it goes because if you're coming up or down, you know, on the swing, you know, those are your change points, obviously. But
Uh-huh.
as it flattens out in between the actual wavelength itself is, you know, directly in the middle of that transience, either up or down, and that's where you get the most stable stuff. So, and that all makes total logical sense. See, it's a, you know, I got a lot of logical integrity, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because when you start understanding how elements build out, you say, well, what is it to change the element? Well, we add an electron and a proton, right? Well, that's pretty simple. So how are you going to add that? Well, you have to break it apart and then add those things and put it back together. Well, how are you breaking them apart and putting them together? Well, you have to do it through the energy exchange in how they're built. So then when you ionize things, you can break things apart and then you can put them back together. Well, this is a transmutative state and it goes from one to the next. So if you want to keep building out elements, you keep adding things to them. If you want to reverse the element and break it down to its original material, you take them out. I mean, I can't make it any clearer than that. It's absolutely right in front of you. And it makes more sense than the little cubicles that they continue to build. Way more fascinating when you get into it and exactly the exact elements you get out to. I can tell you this right now. There's probably 4 or 5 on here that I recognize that I've actually seen transmutated into the elements down further onto the table, and it actually works perfect. So, and gold is one of them. Mercury is a part of it, and people say, you know, this is what gets me. They're not putting things together. Oh, it's ultrasound alone. It's resonance alone. It's the states in which it comes to together in a sheath zone alone. But it's not. It's all of them. This is how physics mix it. They like to identify everything in one line sentences, and then you turn around and you look at it, and it's multiple things happening at once in order to create a cycle. That's the only way that it happens. It's a combination lock. It has to take all the combination features of it, go one way, come back negative the other way. Go one way, come back negative the other way. It's a simple combination lock that works. But it's been said that way so many times in so many different ways, and so many people who believe in the spiritual stuff, they always tell you the same exact thing. It's a combination lock, and we just don't know how to unlock it. Well, so Russell unlocked it for you.
Yeah. It's very cool. And I mean, you can sit there and, if you're anything like me, you'll sit there and look at this all day and just draw connections about points, different points on the chart, and then take things that are like, hey, if you take this and put it with that, and this is the relationship, then you look at where they fall on the chart. Then all of a sudden you realize that you could compare those same spots on other parts of the chart, and you're going to end up with a similar thing, whether you realize it or not. It's just because how it's built out and the numbers and how the relationships are. It comes back to the ratios and stuff too. When you start looking at the ratios of, like I've shown a trillion and a half times, as a you start putting those types of combination locks together and then looking up elements on there, and you might be able to find some very interesting properties that arise out of those relationships that are actually consistent with the types of things that I'm showing. And I'm just making that up as I go along, to be honest. I haven't confirmed it, but I would say that with like actually a little bit of like false confidence,
Well,
to play it out.
let me tell you the resonance thing, because I showed it earlier. I just want to just print this out. Here, watch this. If I create the golden ratio this way, I bring it up to the high point, right? We got all the way to the highest point over here. And it drops, but it doesn't drop the way we think it does. It goes into the negative. It immediately pulls negative. Now it's at the highest point negative, and now it's pulling back to the positive state. You see, that's the point, because you got to remember when you're doing this, it's all a DNA sequence. It all is looping around one center point as it goes. So as you think about it in this thing, it's a 2D representation of what you're doing. Goes around, goes from positive, drops to negative, negative goes back, and it builds back to positive. But that's the exact way it's doing. It's a DNA loop. It's going like this.
Right. It's caduceus. It is
Yeah.
helical.
It's
and it makes sense because when if you look at the Rodin coil, or the spiral, just generally, right? And you see where all the axial points go. You see that where these interactions cross, right, is where they start to spin out. So when you bring it up dimensionally, it goes from that wave there, to now all of a sudden it's twisting because it has a spin, everything has a spin bias anyway, right? So that's kind of where it's at. The funny thing is that when you mirror something and you reverse it, right? You say the right hand rule and that it has to follow that. Well, what happens when you mirror it rather than redirect it? Oh, okay. And now you start to realize that you start sending shit back from where it came, and this is how the scalar events work, right? Because once you get rid of the biases by putting it out, canceling it out, but you collapse it immediately, it just goes back past the least resistance, which is where it came from in the first place, because it's already got an established path there, the same as the conditions that are set in the clay. It's all the same shit. You see, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. So you got your collapse event, and then everything goes right back where it came. And reverse EMF, right? Because you mirrored it. So it's you only see it come out similar to how it came in because you've already added resistance and load to capture it. Okay, and by that time, it's no longer the same as it was when it was transient. You see?
So Joe just explained exactly how Bedini's seeing it, and the fact that he mirrored it and it went back as negative as a spike.
Mhm.
It's literally that simple. It shows out in every way that we've looked at all these experiments. They're all building a piece of the puzzle, and they haven't put the full puzzle together yet. And we're trying to put it together for them and show it to them. And I on my other channel, I build out all these things. You know what I mean? I got the Bedini device, the pulse motor. You know what I mean? All the wire coils, everything. And on this channel, we do the gravity flower. We get into the RAV a lot. Um, it's pretty interesting on how everything works, but it's the same damn thing. It's all positive to negative, but it's not exactly the way you think it is. It's all molding into the same thing. I find it hilarious. I want to get into this, Joe, just a little bit so that we don't ignore it. Walter Russell talked about male and female, and he talks about the soul and stuff like that, and basically the energy exchange that's going on in there, and how things line up. And I'll say this, and I'll let you take it over a little bit.
Sure.
When you look at the chakras and stuff like that, don't be surprised when you start to understand the energy exchange between them, because every time I talk to Joe, it's always the same thing. Where's the heart at? Where's your lungs at? What's the energy exchange that's going on between them? Where is it down further? All of it follows the spinal cord and where things build out in your nerve endings and everything. It is literally an energy exchange going on between them. So if you align them all to the same thing and your brain is a recipient of everything, then it's taking the left side of your brain, dropping it down through every one of your chakras, bring it right up to the right side of the brain, and completing the hemisphere that you live in your head.
Yeah.
That's my side of it.
I mean, right. So, there's, your mind and heart coherence that has to really kind of happen. Once you get that one field, it ends up being field to field building, the same as we talk about when you put, multiple components in resonance. They have the pulley system that I've been talking about, where you pull the belt and all the pulleys turn. Right now, one pulley falls out the system, then that's one less thing going. But what that does is it um, creates less tension, right, in the efficiency of that system. Well, if you lost another pulley off of it, right, all of a sudden the thing is got too much slack to really operate. And that's
Mm-hmm.
sort of how it is. So when you're dealing with your own subtle body energies and such, um, it's really important for your nervous system generally, to be able to have the resonant alignment of all of your chakras. So the greatest benefits are only really in play when it's all in alignment. Yeah, I mean, again, there could be deviation, right? But with that deviation generally comes balance, right? So sometimes one goes sort of this way, but then another goes that way, and you see that makes up for the difference. So even if it's not a perfect straight line down, so to speak, right? You still have these things that could balance out on either side to keep the tension of the system. It would really screws things up, and when you end up sick, is when one or more of them go way too far off, and
Mm-hmm.
then you're in a state of disease, right? Then
But that's where the monks come in, because they're hardly ever sick, and you wonder why, but they're always meditating and putting themselves in balance.
and I mean, there's a lot of things, like for instance, there's like a little trick that for people out there, like kind of suffer with maybe like some neck pain, like I do sometimes and stuff. Now, if you ever had neck pain, right, you'd be familiar with the fact of how debilitating it is because it consumes your mind, okay, and then your entire rest of your body falls out too, and you'll have all sorts of adverse effects from it. But like a lot of that has to do not with the fact that your neck has pain or that your spinal cord is probably involved, even though that's a major component. And it has to do with your vagus nerve, because your vagus nerve is connecting the primary you know, um, spinning components of the rest of the chakras. Now, what's weird is that your mind and your heart, okay, are the working components of this pulley system. So if you think about it, it's like the camshaft, that hooks up to it, and that thing's actually spinning and actually putting the torque and horsepower through that system to run it. And it's got to be connected at the head in order for the rest of it to run efficient. If you have those two in order, most of the time, all the other ones will pull in every single time because those are the moving ones. But because they have the biggest individual fields, because again, this pulley thing is about fields and how they connect. Now, the vagus nerve is what's specifically responsible for that. Now, if you have neck pain, okay, your vagus nerve is pinched. It's already interrupting literally the communication between point A and point B, leaving only the fields being their only line of communication at that point, or for whatever, and then that'll diminish as that gets worse. So, like if you actually go right above your ear drum, and there's like a little divot here. It's like, I guess this is your, I don't know, that fold in your ear right there. If you feel right above there, right, you have a little cavity, and I'm not even kidding. If you relax your head and you press down on that and you just free up your neck a little bit, what you'll see is like most of the time you'll actually get a flush of coherence for a brief moment. And if you actually keep the pressure on and move to the point where you're freeing up that signal, you'll actually fall into alignment, which is nice, especially if you're out of alignment. And that's not even with meditation. That's just literally using, your own biology and how these things work, to, work yourself out.
Well, so this is funny. I'm trying to say this in the way that YouTube will not smash my channel. The human body puts off fields, and it puts off resonance between the fields. And if you can connect those to an apparatus that puts off the fields, you can change some of the stuff in there, which the body doesn't allow in general in the skin effect because it doesn't want them in there. It's nature's biology working against all forms of things outside of it to not allow it in. So therefore, 90% of the time, you're going to have to focus within and find those things in order to communicate with things outside of it, or find a medium that allows you to do both. And that is an extremely difficult task if you don't know where to look. There's things I could tell you, but YouTube won't let me on exactly how that works. But the future technology is going to be sitting in a tube with these things going on. And you're going to find out that we were right and Walter Russell was right and exactly how he described them. And the energy zones are going to be different between male and female just based on which parts are resonating in the chakra zones is going to be different field and different energies in both. And that's probably how he described male and female and how it worked. So just so we're clear, he did go into it. We're not allowed to go into a lot of it here, but it's 100% there, and I would cross the line if YouTube'd let me and just tell you the true answer.
So they've eliminated from our zeitgeist over time, okay, and they've made it almost like politically incorrect, is that the material and the life force energy, okay, the actual life itself, okay, is the male attribute. Okay, that's the male component. Is the giving of the material and the life force energy. And the female energy is the part that takes it and organizes it. So they like to make things sound like they're more equal and there's equal components here. The man gets his part and the woman has her part, and then those parts, they go together, and whatever's dominant is what comes up. The fact is this: that the reason that mitochondrial DNA, okay, is persistent is because that's a female line, genetic line bias, okay, of how it's going to organize major, like certain major components of the material given. Okay. But the reason that the male attributes still are present, okay, is because even though it organizes those bits and pieces in the same configuration to make it traceable, it's doing so using various parts that are given by the male, and those various parts are of his components. So it could only restructure, the male given components into the female given sequences. Um,
Hmm.
and that's it. The thing is that females don't give the life though. That's the hard part for people to hear. You know, the actual giving of the life part is the male contribution. That's why it's the father. The father and then the son is because the woman might have put it together, but the male is she put together what the male gave. That's
Well,
it.
you
Like,
can see
and I
that
know it sounds fucked up, but it's true. you
you can
know
see that in the sperm, Joe. The sperm's alive and moving, and then
exactly,
the egg
exactly.
sitting there, and then it builds out to this greater structure.
And that's why a sperm has a lifespan and an egg doesn't really. Like an egg is there from time of birth, okay, and ultimately, um, is only active once something else interacts with it. Other than that, it's totally inert. Um, uh, Biology doesn't even openly admit that. They'll try to skate around it. Like I said, they try to skate around it, and it's like, no, 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 no. Uh, but the answer is very clear: lifespan, no lifespan. Moves, doesn't move. you know, um, it doesn't get more clear than that. And if you look at what actually happens, during contraception, um, there's a catalytic reaction, okay, that occurs once the sperm enters into the egg that solidifies it, okay. And if you notice and you watch, it's the sperm that starts splitting. It goes into a dissolved state and then starts splitting, and that's actually the parts starting to break apart. And if you notice, they always break apart in the same sequences at first, right? But then as they get smaller and smaller, all of a sudden, that's when the arrangement starts to happen. It's like the guy that buys the house, and then the woman who moves in, and you know she picks the furniture and decorates the walls and such, and obviously cooks the meals because they got to feed the thing while it's in there too, and then has the pain of loneliness while you're out there breaking your ass. Like, I mean, it is what it is. But and I know the
Yeah.
way I'm not downplaying it. The role is obviously equally as significant. It's just not where the life comes from.
So it's like the guy that has the apartment and a beanbag chair and a TV, you know what I mean? And a refrigerator. And then the woman comes in and it gets colorful inside, and you get couches, you get desks, you get, actual dishes, not paper plates. You know what I mean? That's that's funny. I never thought about it that way, but that's exactly true. My wife does all that stuff, dude. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm the beanbag guy. You know what I mean?
That's it. And just like and even plants. Hold on, plants do the same thing though, right? So the male, the pollen, okay, literally has to detach and spread itself, okay, through its environment in that particular case because it's passive, and it has to actually be the one that moves to get to the other thing to then go into the thing that doesn't move for then that thing to then produce a seed, which is at the end of the day all that is the same thing as a womb. It's a completed womb at that part once you have your seed. Now, if you've ever seen a fruit, right, that was bared of something that wasn't necessarily fertilized or didn't reach full development, you notice how anemic the seeds are. Um, because fruit could be produced, but if the fertilization wasn't actually successful, you end up with these thin little nothing of seeds within it, and that's what ends up happening.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff, man. Wash it all away. Don't mention it.
Oh man, it's cool as heck. This, we're going a couple hours now. I just want to say this, man. This is such a fascinating subject. There's so much more here. This is one of those things I wanted to work on for our Plasma Unleashed series to go to the next step and to do it in a better way so that we can see the actual video of it and then the drawing, you know what I mean? And then put them both together, you know what I mean? As a synchronized thing so that we can all see it together and achieve it. It's a little difficult on a show like this to do that, but I think on a show like the Plasma Unleashed series, we can pull that off and it'll start to become something really awesome because we're actually physically seeing his work play out. And when people say, man, we have a theory of everything in the Walter Russell stuff, well, yeah, it does. And a lot of the stuff he says it plays out in human nature. It's all about how you interpreted it. Some people can't see it. They just don't want to see it. They have too many laws in their head. They've been doing physics too long. They start violating each law that they talk about with the next one that they try to spit out of their mouth, and they're not able to see anything. It happens all the time. I see it in physics shows all the time. Or somebody will just focus on physics and ignore backyard adventures or something. They don't realize everything. I literally do a show where we talk about it in common language, and I see somebody translate it into physics terms and find all the papers that I'm talking about and what's going on. And let me just tell you, I've never read any one of them. It's because we do this, Joe, I, and Sean get together and talk about this stuff that we figured it out and it actually plays out. And we found the people who showed it before us.
And this isn't like, and it's a little weird because our processes work a little reverse. And, I almost feel guilty. It's like, it feels like pride or ego when I say it, but it's not, like the stuff that like I found personally, at least, it's independently discovered, even when it's been said before.
Mm-hmm.
Like like I said earlier, I didn't even know what the hell, other than the chart thing, I didn't know what Walter Russell did, or didn't do, to be honest. Like, so the stuff I know didn't come from him. It came from some kind of deeper understanding of it. But then when you see the work and then everything, we have this privilege of living in today's day and age of communication. Also, just the same processes, no different than, any of the other minds out there that self-discover these things, but then the ability to make these connections. And one thing that Walter Russell didn't see was how the solution of it was really the Maxwell demon. And then when, Maxwell came up with it, he didn't call it a Maxwell demon. He just, described it as like
Mm-hmm.
an entity or force type thing that does this separation. Um, and once you're able to separate the pieces, well, then cool. He didn't imply anything further. You see, but what do we know about bringing the pieces apart and then having a place that also puts them back together through the sequence? Well, when you combine what when you combine what Walter Russell knew and then combine it with what Maxwell found and believed, okay, but then you actually realize that once you loop what Maxwell was saying, you end up with the answer. That was the answer. You had to combine that work, and they saw it so far to see these awesome conclusions, but they weren't the conclusion at all. Is what it came down to. But I don't know. It's crazy to think.
Yeah, sorry, Joe. I'm looking right now. There was a lady who joined the chat, and I can't find her channel right now. I was gonna give her a shout out. And
What was that subtle energy?
yeah, I highlighted it a couple times. Did you see it?
Yeah, it's subtle energy. But I don't know the full name. Give me a sec.
I wanted to put out the address for everybody because I want to check out her channel later as well, right here.
Yeah, there you go. Subtle. The subtle realms. Pardon me. That was my best recall on the fly.
I think you did good. Got me there. Yeah, there you go. All right, guys, we're going to check that out because I want to see what she has going on here with spin and phase and stuff like that. See if it matches what we got going on here. So I think a couple of you have already
I
went
saw a
over.
good one the other day, dude.
What is it?
I saw a physicist make a video swearing to God that nobody knows what static is. Yeah, and I almost fell out of my chair.
Nobody knows what
describing
static is?
Then he's describing how it's made in what do they call that? A Vander something generator, right?
Van der Graaf?
Vandergraaf generator. And then you think about even just how like a brush, a brush works. Think about like the gravel fly or something like that. Even that type of transmission.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is because you're going to create static through that interaction, that friction interaction, if you want to call it that, fine, right? Which is the energy transfer between two materials. Well, there's motion involved, and the motion doesn't have a frequency. Duh. It doesn't have a frequency because it's in continuous motion. So if you have something spinning and it's spinning a brush, that might have an RPM, okay? But what doesn't it have? It doesn't. It doesn't.
It has a frequency.
It doesn't have a It doesn't have a fluctuation rate.
It's it's RPM divided by 60. Is the frequency.
Again,
it's a charge state. They screwed up in the charge state.
It is a charge state, but because there's constant contact and constant rotation, there's an offset of that RPM rate that doesn't translate directly to a frequency, making it just create potential that's unvectored and unpulsed if it doesn't have a load. And once you have a load on it, it doesn't fall into a frequency either because it just ends up in a DC state. So that's the whole entire thing about it, because you need to be able to add like a further resistance to it to get it to fall into an AC state. So I don't know.
Well, hold on.
Just the thought. I was like, I understand static pretty good, and that was the best I could kind of come up with on the fly.
Well, static is, hold on. That's what gets me. Static is high frequency, and it's very high voltages. The part of it that happens as a charge state on the object is what it creates. So it creates a biased charge state on it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But most time people confuse static electricity with dielectric when there is no charge state on it. So when you go up to the static, you put your hand on, your hair goes up, right? You touch dielectric and you're just going to get zapped. Okay, your hair doesn't go up. Okay, so when you're dealing with a Tesla coil, it's dielectric because your hair doesn't go up and you get zapped. When you're dealing with static, it's a charge state, so you put your hand on and your hair goes up. Okay?
Well, you're putting when you put potential into capacitance without a vector, that's what you end up with, is the point. Yes, because that's exactly what it is. There's a certain capacitance of the exchange, right? It becomes a charge bias, and then that bias has nowhere to go because there's no load and there's no pull. So it doesn't try to equalize out, but then when you touch something, it goes, or if you go into proximity to something, it starts to re-exchange alternatively, and that leads to the attractive event, and that's what it is. So it's realistically unvectored, frequencyless energy with capacitance and nowhere to go.
Well, okay, so this is where we talk about exchange rates all the time, right? Well, the magnetodielectric is an exchange rate between the amperage of the magnetism and the voltage of, the dielectric. And so how do you conquer that in a system? You put it through a battery in a linear form. You don't put it in the battery as your positive and negative. You put it in your battery in line with the positive itself, and then put it out the other side. Here's why. Anytime you take a dielectric field and put it in there, and it creates spin inside not the dielectric, but inside the what do they call that in minerals in the water? You put it in there, and then it basically spins it. And when it spins it, it builds a magnetic in that. So it builds around that. Electrolytes. As soon as you put it in there, it builds around that. So it's going to convert the energy from a super high frequency to a lower frequency with more the magnetic field, so you get the more amperage in there. So it's going to balance out your field better when it comes out of it, but you don't put it in positive to negative side. You put it in line with it. So you go in one side and then out the other, and then it basically creates a state change inside of it to change your energy. So it's not that static electricity doesn't have the amperage component. It's just 0.0001. It's a rounding error to physics, but it truly still exists because you can't have it without the energy exchange between the magneto-dielectric. But it's dictated by frequency. That's why it's super high frequency. As you could take it and lower the frequency, and the amperage shows back up every time. It works like a charm, but you have to have the correct system to do it. So, sorry, my 2 cents from building things forever.
No, it's cool. But it's the same exact logic that I said, and then you just reiterated on and built on.
Probably
that which is the mechanism of why that gravity flyer design that I was proposing actually works. Which is it's kind of pretty cool when you think about it, no?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'll tell you, that's a video you're not gonna probably like, but it's gonna work. Coming up on the gravity flyer here, because I rebuilt it. You can see it over my shoulder right here. So what I actually did was take out all those wobbly plates that everybody hated, and I bought aluminum ones that are solid, that are 2 millimeters thick, and they don't put out the wobbly state. Okay, this thing is precise. It's clean. It works great. Not going to have a problem with all of the sounds and harmonics you're going to be able to hear from it this time. Okay, all that noisy garbage goes away. We get into what we wanted in the beginning, and I rebuilt it that way so that when Lightspeed hooks up with me, we show all the different sensors and everything. It has no imperfection to cause the sensors to go awry somewhere. And then now we can map it. And that's what he requested, so that's what I did. I rebuilt it the correct way to show that stuff. So interesting as it is, man, I actually have a video that I'm going to have out tomorrow on this thing, and I'm just going to tell the answer of where the energy is. And you'd be surprised, Joe, and I kind of told you tonight what it was. Paul came over and I showed him. It's, you know how they build out the 3 plates? You think it's a capacitor between the 2 little ones?
Mm-hmm.
But when the plate builds out in the center, it multiplies the capacitance level of the entire thing.
Oh, okay.
But the Tesla coil is hooked to the center. So I could take the high voltage and run it down to almost nothing. It just has to be there. Okay? Mm-hmm. Then the Tesla coil controls the value of the circuit now, because it now becomes the field that links the 2, and all it has to do is give me the values. So I'm literally building this thing harmonically. The motor is 1/3 the speed of the motor on the top. The beat frequency bounces in between in a 1-to-3 ratio. Now the harmonics on the next level in the high voltage build out the same way to the Tesla coil. 1/3 of the high voltage builds out to the Tesla coil field on the outside of itself, so it's harmonically the same. But if I showed you that on a harmonic line, like this, and then the other one under it, okay, just like this, no figure eights, it's going to come out multiples of 10 as it builds out and be harmonically perfect from one to the next to the next to the ultrasound to done. It's harmonics. And Yeah, it's mind blowing the way it actually worked.
Yeah, and I'm sure it probably kicks in. You'll probably hear it, right? One frequency at a time, right? So you probably hear the one, and then the next one will start to come in underneath it, and then meld with that first one, and then the next one will start coming in underneath that and meld with that next one. That's what I would predict as far
Like
as what the audible, um,
it
you know,
changes the motor speeds, and you can hear the pickup in energy in the machine. It's
absolutely. That's you're in both resonance but also beat frequency pulsing as well. So you're dealing with frequent amplification events that are occurring, but also in resonance, which then refeeds the initial of all of them because every time one pings, they all ping. Ding, 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 because that's how resonance works. And the higher frequencies, will usually pick up the lower frequencies, entirely. And then the lower frequencies will pick up the higher frequencies at most points. Like it's an inverse equation as far as that exchange is, but it's an overall um, you know, you know,
well, take it this way: when you take a string and you rotate it, one fixed point, one rotational point, it'll make the nodes in between. You'll see them build out. There's one big node, put them a little closer together, they make two nodes, another one, three nodes, another one, four. But that's the scale. So you're going from one to the next by a certain multiple, which means that they're all in line with each other. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's all a multiple of each other. So they're all in line. So you're making, by the time you're done, you're in the fifth harmonic in resonance,
The
which
fifth
means
harmonic, according to Walter Russell, it means that you're in the carbon zone, right? So that's the stability. There's the most stability at that point.
remember what I said, between each one of them is a row.
And
Between each,
the other thing about the fifth harmonic, okay, and this is according to me not knowing, Walter Russell said the same basic thing, but there's a transitional state from energy bias to material bias in between the fourth and fifth, which is weird because if you recall, I had called hydrogen many times um, energy like matter, right? And that's
mhm.
exactly what it is. Okay, we see it as matter, but it's actually really dense energy. Is actually what it is, But that transition from energy to matter fully comes about, okay, when you enter from that fourth to fifth harmonic, which is where carbon lives, which is why everything on Earth that's alive forms in carbon because it's the closest thing to the energy state, okay? Meaning plasma. Plasma can still interact with it because it's
Mhm.
close enough to that energy state while still being material. And then it automatically goes after the most stable element, okay, to attach to because it's in that transmutive state. So you immediately have things, the plasma is attached to the carbon. And if you look around and you look at the remnants of all the life that kicks around, one of the last two things that kick around is hydrocarbons. See, it's because, and what is that? It's all stored energy. And then when like you got to be able to put it together. It's material stored energy because of the hydrocarbon. And yeah, this is
But
and if they ask why life didn't form in silica, that's exactly why. Is because silica just falls further away from that energy like matter state, so it wasn't path of least resistance.
well, that's why you get, what is it? I keep thinking of the wrong name. You go carbon, and then it goes. What's the other state of carbon, Joe? When it builds out to super fast material in voltage,
Super like graphene.
graphene. There you go. That's how you get there. the higher energy state, what crypto's talking about right now in the chat, is that exact state. When you start to break things down apart, you can put them back together the right way. It's not just burning them. You know what I mean? It's why Joe sent me a picture of this guy with a high voltage thing in a pot going like this. You know what I mean? A carbon, because he had like a little RAV in there, and in the RAV, and whether he knew it or not, he was transmuting it into that state. And then it was taking away different elements from the other carbons in the area, transmutating it and making it right into the graphene that he wanted. And then you could basically take it and put it on the top of one of these materials, and it's absolutely fascinating that you no longer need wires. You just put this thing in, man, and it'll act as a wire itself. It'll also act as memory. I don't know a lot of people that know that, but it acts as memory in the same way. As the energy goes through it, it's a memory chip.
Yeah. Well, okay. So if we know that energy is attracted to carbon, okay, then doesn't this explain why if you were to take a piece of, if you were to take like a piece of charcoal, like actual good charcoal, the kind that sounds like metal because it's frigging carbon, right? And then you wrap copper wire around it, but then you bury it in the ground, why that puts off an unlimited voltage? Well, I mean, it gets moist, and then the energy from the ground saturates into the carbon, and then again, that's a static state at that point. It's a potential state. But then once the copper is involved, there's fluxes that occur because of the copper, right? There's a magnetism that's induced through the fact that you wrap the copper around it. And once you have that magnetic vector, now all of a sudden you have the equivalent of pull. So it acts as a pseudo load, moving the potential from the ground through the carbon attractor and into the conductive copper, and then you can actually draw the energy out of the copper. Okay, that's it, plain and simple. We got lots of happy birthdays going on, by the way. So, but happy birthday to Mike. Okay, his birthday was the other day, and I believe it is Eighth Sinner's birthday today.
Well, happy birthday, Eighth Sinner.
Happy birthday to Eighth Sinner. Now, I don't know. Eighth doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that loves to celebrate his birthday or have it announced publicly for the internet to hear, but I want to pay that regard regardless. So,
yeah, we like Eighth Sinner. He's a cool guy, man.
Yeah, man.
I want to say, Fix It Fast, dude, 110, his birthday as well. Oh, man, we got a lot of birthdays. Mine's coming up soon, too, man.
Right on.
Gonna hit that 49 is I think the next number. I hope it's 49. I was gonna say I hope it's not 50. No, it's 49.
Could you imagine if you missed your 50th birthday thinking you were a year younger than you were?
You see, this is the whole beanbag on the floor thing. You know what I mean? The wife counts the birthdays for mine and hers. She don't tell me hers. You know what I mean, as far as the age, but she tells me when the birthday is, so I get her stuff. And then I don't remember any of it. You know what I mean? She has to remind me.
It's all right. I was going through like a period of my life, like not too long ago, might have been like last year, the year before, where like I continuously forgot how old I was, whether I was like, I'd have to like count on my fingers like a total like idiot. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's terrible. Did you take off your shoes and count your toes?
No. I mean, listen, I'm not full blown retard. Like I was like, all right, I was born in 86, so that means like in in 2006 I was 20, and 16 I was 30, and then I was like, all right.
I asked the internet, you know what I mean? The Google for the AI to tell me how old I am. Oh, it's terrible.
No, I didn't forget what year I was born in, so I was safe as far as recovering the data. Was concerned.
Oh man. That's so amazing, man. That's great. Oh. All right, guys. It's been fun, man. This is a good show, Joe.
Right on. That definitely
What?
is. Walter Russell's the man. I
Yeah, we
mean,
went through a lot of
everything
it.
isn't light, in my opinion, but I mean, other than that, he's pretty good. Then again, he died like 60 or 70, 60 years ago or something. So I'm gonna give him a pass.
Oh yeah, well this is what the 1920s was
I
it
mean,
that
that
you came out with
wasn't.
this?
Yeah, he was a Tesla contemporary. I mean, he died in the 60s.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
he was like mostly active in like the teens, 20s, and 30s.
Huh. Well, there
Yep.
we go, man. Tells you something about everything. Hey, just a couple things real quick. I want to shout out Ulysses here real quick, man. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. Taking care of me as usual, man. I appreciate that. Um, I also wanted to say later tonight I'll be on Traveling Fools. We're talking Bigfoot tonight, man. I asked to present on there for some of this stuff, and I think when Joe and I get it together on Walter Russell and finish our episode, we'll go on there and be the guest. So I think that's going to be cool. That'll be upcoming here in the future, but tonight it's going to be Bigfoot. If you're interested in that kind of thing, man, tune into the Traveling Fools channel, man. It'll be a totally awesome show. Special guest tonight to talk about that in general. A guy does a show, Joe, where he talks about that, probably this subject as well that we're on today, all
Very
kinds of
cool.
UFO stuff. So yeah, kind of a guy to speak about all of it. So I think that's totally cool, man.
Right on. No, that sounds like fun, and you know what? We'll get around to talking about the Egypt stuff, and that'll be fun too. So lots of good stuff that always goes on that channel. I always like catching it later because I'm usually sleeping.
Not me, man. I don't sleep for that. Hey, I also just want to throw this out there, guys. I know I didn't do a show this last Monday. I'm going through some health things, so it's going to be hit or miss for me on a Monday. Okay. I want to rule it out altogether, but I don't know if that's definitely going to happen either. So just to let you know, as a heads up, just look for it. I may be in, I may be out. But hopefully I'll finish, whatever I'm going through here very soon and get back on track.
And the goal is to have you another Plasma Unleashed, probably coming this next week. So keep an eye out for that. And
Hmm.
unlike last week where it was just kind of, you know, thrown into the ether and hopefully you would discover it, we'll post it ahead of time so you know when it's going to be and have a live premiere so we can chat about it and have a good old time.
That was
So,
my fault.
yeah.
Sorry, Joe. That was my fault.
Ah.
It's totally my fault, dude. Sorry.
It's funny when you know what when it drops live and people see it and they anticipate it. It seems like more people like found it. So yeah, we'll have to do that, and hopefully you guys like the new format a little bit. You know, tried to put that together as best I could.
You did great, Joe. You did a great job on it, man. I
Yeah,
really like that one.
caught a little shit for using AI videos and such. But like, I mean, we're just trying to make it entertaining. And then listen, I was watching fucking Ancient Aliens earlier today, like I think it was last night or something. I was looking, and they were literally using garbage stock footage for 99% of the entire thing, and all it was stock footage with uh cheesy special effect overlays on it, and me and a million other people watch that damn thing and do not complain about it at all. Yet when I make bespoke, like literally bespoke AI stuff that's hyper specific to what I'm trying to say and made to order, and then put it up there, people were giving me shit, and I'm like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Like, kiss my ass. I didn't ask AI to write this script. They didn't do the fucking research. Okay.
Yeah.
They didn't put it together. They didn't spend They didn't spend 16 damn hours making the damn thing. Okay, like do me a favor, save me the shit. and we
That's
have real
not,
footage, and we have real footage in there
yeah.
continuously. Real
I was
footage.
going to say, not to mention all the time Sean did, building everything.
Yeah, right. Ancient Aliens ain't never one time show me real footage of a fucking alien, okay? Like, but we showed you real footage of a goddamn miniature sun fourth dimensional portal, for Christ's sake. And you giving me shit? Kiss my ass. Just saying.
Oh, I love it. I love it, Joe.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
it was only one person, and honestly, that guy is fine. I'm just breaking chops.
Oh, I love it, man. That's why I put out those things Sean sends me all the time, man. I put them out. Don't even mess with them unless I want to slow it down to show a point, you know what I mean, or something like that. You know what I mean? And then if I do them, I'll do the same thing. You know what I mean? So, right
Yeah,
on.
that's all good. So yeah, keep your eye open for that. More AI garbage coming your way. Stuff that gets worse, get killed by the algorithms, all 9 yards, peace and love.
Whatever. We're all good, guys. Have yourself a great night, man. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for hanging out with us in this chat, man. Have yourself a great night.
I'll give you a second. Peace and love.
The old man Bill. The old man Bill. The old man Bill. The old man builds. The old man builds is broken in the head. People not seeing reality has put them in the red. Where conscious and spirituality been stricken from the norm and replaced with the ignorance of basic magnetic form. The geometry of God keeps running through his head. That's what makes old man builds broken in the head. The old man builds. The old man builds. Spheres of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds.